Hello, students. Happy Friday. Professor Miller here checking in. I'm starting to get those Roman values short writing assignments in, and for the most part, they are looking absolutely fantastic. It has been a great joy to read your essays, to read your ideas, and to put those A's in. If you got a B, you probably also did a great job. You just need a little bit more refinement. So I suspect that if you start implementing some of the feedback that I provide, an A is in your very near future. But I'm also seeing a few submissions that are not quite meeting the expectations of the assignment. So let's just talk about that really quickly. So now remember, we already have our thesis statement pretty much written for us. We're just filling in a couple of blanks. And in that first blank, we're putting a Roman value. It is quite apparent that many of you have not been in this week's module and completed the required reading because it isn't a value that's making its way into that first blank. So in this week's reading, there is a dedicated page that is just on Roman values. At the beginning of that reading, there is some information about Augustus and his morality reforms. And then towards the bottom, there is an entire section that just talks about different kinds of Roman values. There's even a chart there that it kind of explains what maybe the near equivalent in our culture would be for those values. So it's most likely going to be a Latin value that is going to go in that first blank. We did cover one of those values in class on Wednesday, and that is going to be Rominatus. And remember, Rominatus is the good of Rome, all for Rome. So if you want to use Rominatus because that is a Roman value that you are already familiar with, go for it. You are more than welcome to use that one. But otherwise, I strongly recommend that you use one of the values in this week's reading in order to keep things on course. All right, and then for the second one, I've had fewer questions about that one. I think you guys seem to understand that one, but just to clarify, just in case you need a little bit of help, more help, especially if you are accomplishing this later on Sunday and I'm not available, in that second blank, you are going to put your cultural artifact. Now, a cultural artifact is something that is produced by that culture. Some of the cultural artifacts we talked about in our class are things like, Maserati cars or the various superhero films we talked about. Those are things that are produced by our culture that says something about our culture, right? So you're going to be looking at Roman produced cultural artifacts. So it might be one of those coins. It might be one of the statues we looked at. It might be the Aeneid, which was the epic poem written by Virgil that we talked about. It may or may not be a work in Rominatus propaganda to legitimize Augustus's reign. Any of those, if you need a little help, again, the module is going to be your best friend. Make sure you're looking through that module. You can kind of look at the pictures, some of the bolded terminology and things to find those cultural artifacts that might be appropriate for this assignment. And per usual, I'd like you to chase your interests. So if something in particular appeals to you, please know that you can use that for the inspiration for your paper. Now, the other thing I just wanted to draw your attention to, because even though it's yellow and bolded, I'm also already seeing some students, they're using a Roman value to evaluate their modern artifact. However, we are not ancient Romans, so we do not understand their values the same way that we understand our own values. So whatever value you are evaluating your modern artifact for is going to be a term that you are familiar with. It's not going to be a brand new Latin term that you've never heard of before. So make sure you are kind of keeping those eggs in those two separate baskets. So Roman value, Roman artifact. Modern value, modern artifact. Okay, hopefully that helps, but if you guys have any questions at all, please know that I'm always delighted to hear from you, and you can email me, or we can even hop on a quick Zoom if you think that you need a little bit more support. All right, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend and happy writing.